Last June, I watched a customer's St. Augustine go from thick and green to half dead in 11 days. He'd done everything the bag told him. Fed it, watered it daily, mowed it short. Every one of those moves was wrong for that time of year. And they're wrong because the advice on those bags was written for a different grass, in a different climate, then sold to everyone anyway. There's a short window before July closes that decides your whole summer, and what you do in it is almost the opposite of what you've been told. Get it right and you stop fighting your lawn in August entirely. Stay with me, because the thing I checked before July with a screwdriver, not a meter, a screwdriver, tells me everything about whether a lawn will make it. Let me tell you who wrote the advice on that bag. Not a Texas turf guy. Not anybody who's ever watched St. Augustine cook in 100-degree heat. That 4-step seasonal feed program, the one you've seen your whole life, feed in spring, feed in early summer, feed in summer, feed in fall, was built in the 1950s during the post-war suburban lawn boom around Kentucky bluegrass. Cool season grass. Up in the Great Lakes and the Northeast, where summers are mild and humid and a June afternoon tops out in the low 80s. That program made sense there. For that grass. In that climate. Then somebody figured out you could print one set of instructions on every bag and ship it to all 50 states. And that's exactly what they did. The same calendar that worked on a bluegrass lawn in Ohio got sold to a man with Bermuda in Plano and a man with St. Augustine in Houston. Here's the step that does the damage. The summer feeding. On bluegrass in a mild northern June, a summer feeding is fine. The grass is actively growing and the heat never gets brutal. Down here, that same summer feeding hits a warm season lawn that's already fighting 95 to 100-degree heat, and it's the worst thing you can do to it. But it's printed on the bag anyway because the bag doesn't know where it's going, and that's the cost. Every July, homeowners across the South and the whole transition zone follow a calendar written for somebody else's grass and somebody else's climate, and they lose turf doing it. They do everything right by the bag, and watch their lawn collapse. I've been doing this for 30 years, 1,000 lawns across DFW, and I've watched that same July collapse repeat itself year after year. Good people, good intentions, following instructions that were never meant for their yard. So let's walk through what actually works before July closes the window on you. Here's the thing about timing. There's one stretch left on the calendar that decides everything, and it's the final 2 to 3 weeks of June. Everything I'm about to tell you has to happen before July 1st. That's not me being dramatic. That's the soil temperature. Right now, in late June, you've still got moderate heat. Warm days, but not the wall of 95 to 100-degree afternoons that locks in across DFW the second July hits. Once that wall goes up, your lawn stops growing roots and switches to pure survival mode. It's not building anything anymore. It's just hanging on. So this window, these last couple weeks of June, is the only time left to drive root depth before summer takes the choice away from you. And you'll notice the bag calendar says nothing about it. Nothing. Because the calendar was written for a place where July isn't a death sentence. It treats June like just another feeding month instead of the most important 2 weeks of your whole lawn year. Now let me show you exactly why that customer's St. Augustine died in 11 days. Because every move he made came straight off the bag, and every one of them was a knife in a different spot. First, he fed it. Nitrogen mid-June, right before the heat. Here's what nitrogen does. It forces top growth. It tells the plant to push new tender blades, fast. In spring, fine, the roots can support that growth. But in pre-July heat, you're asking the plant to grow a bunch of soft new tissue at the exact moment the roots can't pull enough water to support it. So those tender blades scorch. They brown at the tips and work down. He fed his lawn into a heat scald. Second, he watered it every single day. Sounds caring, it's the opposite. Daily watering only wets the top inch of soil, and grass roots are lazy. They grow where the water is. Water shallow every day, and you train the entire root system to live in the top inch of soil. Now you've got a lawn with roots an inch deep going into Texas summer. And there's a second problem. St. Augustine sitting wet every day in heat is an open invitation to fungal disease. Brown patch and dollar spot both thrive in that warm, constantly moist canopy. So he built shallow roots and fed a fungus at the same time. Third, he mowed it short. Scalped it, really. Cut the canopy way down because the bag and every neighbor says short grass looks tidy. But that canopy is the lawn's sunshade. Strip it off and you expose the soil directly to the sun. The soil overheats. The crown of the plant, the part that has to survive, dries out. And bare hot soil is exactly where crabgrass wants to be. Crabgrass germinates when soil hits around 55 degrees, and a single mature plant drops about 150,000 seeds. So he overheated his crown and rolled out the welcome mat for weeds in one pass. Feed, daily water, scalp. Each one alone hurts. Together they collapsed a thick green lawn in 11 days. And every single one of those moves is endorsed, directly or indirectly, by the standard bag program. That's not bad luck. That's bad instructions. So here's the part where I tell you the method, and I want you to notice that it's almost the exact opposite of what you've been told. Start with the mower. Raise the cut. For St. Augustine, you want 3.5 to 4 inches. For Bermuda, 2 to 2.5 inches. For tall fescue, same as St. Augustine, 3.5 to 4 inches. Taller grass shades its own soil and holds moisture. And whatever height you pick, never remove more than 1/3 of the blade in a single mow. You take off more than 1/3, you shock the plant, and you scalp that canopy right back open. 1/3. That's the rule. Next, the water. Stop watering daily. You want deep and infrequent, 1 to 1.5 inches of water once or twice a week, soaking down to a full 6 inches in the soil. Not a light sprinkle every morning. A deep soak a couple times a week. That's what pulls roots downward because now the water they want is 6 inches down, so that's where they grow. Deep roots are drought roots. And water early, between 4 and 8 in the morning. You water early so the moisture soaks in before the day's heat evaporates it off the surface, and so the canopy dries out as the sun comes up, which starves that brown patch and dollar spot fungus that loves sitting wet overnight. Watering in the evening leaves the lawn damp all night. That's how you grow disease. And the feeding? Skip it. Do not put nitrogen down on a warm season lawn heading into July. The bag says feed. I'm telling you not to. Instead, if you want to give the lawn something, give it potassium. Potassium doesn't force top growth. It builds the plant's tolerance for heat, drought, and stress. It's the nutrient that helps the lawn hold up under exactly the conditions July is about to throw at it. Nitrogen says grow. Potassium says endure. In late June, you want endure. Now look at what we just did. Raise the cut instead of scalping. Water deep and twice a week instead of shallow and daily. Hold the nitrogen instead of feeding. Add potassium instead. Top to bottom, it is the reverse of the bag program. And that's exactly why you won't find it on any bag. Because the bag is selling you the Northern Bluegrass Calendar. And the Northern Bluegrass Calendar can't tell you to skip the feeding, when selling you that feeding is the whole point. But here's the layer most people never get to, and it's the one that actually wins you August. It's called controlled drought conditioning, and it sounds backwards until you understand it. In these last weeks of June, you actually want to water a touch leaner than feels comfortable. Not bone dry, deep, but spaced out, letting that top layer of soil dry between soakings. When the surface dries and the only moisture left is down deep, the roots have no choice. They chase the water down. You're training them. Every deep and spaced watering session in June drives that root system deeper into the soil, 6 inches and beyond. You're toughening the lawn on purpose, while the weather's still mild enough that it can take the training. Then the taller canopy does the rest. That 3.5 to 4 inches of St. Augustine, or that thicker stand of Bermuda, shades the soil underneath it. Shaded soil stays cooler and holds moisture far longer than bare, scalped soil baking in the sun. So now you've got two things working for you going into July: roots that reach deep enough to find water, and a canopy that keeps the soil cool enough to hold it. That's the whole secret to August. A lawn trained this way in June survives the worst of summer on far less water, because it built the root depth and the self-shading canopy to handle it before the heat ever locked in. You stop standing out there in August dragging hoses and watching it brown anyway. The lawn carries itself. You did the work in June, and the lawn coasts through July and August on it. And none of that, not the deep root training, not the self-shading canopy, not a word of controlled drought conditioning, is anywhere on that 4-step bag. It can't be. A bag that taught you to build a self-sufficient lawn would be a bag that taught you to stop buying summer feedings. That's not the business they're in. Now, before we keep going, I want to tell you about something. If everything I just walked you through is clicking, if you're starting to realize that the standard advice on lawns has been backwards this whole time, then you'll understand the thesis my whole book is built on. It's called Larry's 30-Day Weed Kill Protocol. It's $17, and you'll find it at larrysgardenbooks.com. The very first chapter, the one called Why Everything You Know About Weeds Is Wrong, makes this exact case. Your lawn problem isn't a reaction problem, it's a management problem, and the conventional approach has you treating symptoms forever. If you're exhausted by the cycle, and you want a system, not another tip, this is it. If you're watching on your TV, grab your phone and point it at the QR code on screen. Take your time finding it. I'll be right here. Phone or laptop, the link's in the description. So why does the bag advice survive? Why is the same broken calendar still printed today? Sold to a guy in Plano the same as a guy in Minneapolis. Follow the money. The 4-step program makes its money when it tells everyone to feed in summer. That summer feeding step isn't there because your warm season lawn needs nitrogen in July heat. It's there because it's the 3rd bag in the season. Maybe the 4th. A homeowner who feeds in spring, summer, and fall buys more product than a homeowner who feeds once and holds the nitrogen through the heat. Same with watering. Daily watering and frequent feeding move more product off the shelf than deep, infrequent watering, and a hold the nitrogen strategy ever will. Habits that empty bags faster are habits that get printed on bags. And the reason it's one instruction for the whole country comes down to scale. A single printed label that ships to every store in America is cheaper to produce and cheaper to sell than region-specific guidance that actually accounts for your grass and your climate. One calendar, one nation, one bag. That's the business model. Now, I want to be straight with you, because this audience is too smart for a cheap villain story. The bag isn't lying. That advice genuinely works. For Kentucky bluegrass, in a mild Midwest June. In the cool, humid air those instructions were written for back in the 1950s. Feed bluegrass in a 78-degree northern summer and it'll thank you. The advice isn't wrong. It's wrong for you. And here's what that costs you down here in the transition zone. You pay for the extra summer feeding. You pay for the daily water. You build shallow roots and a thin canopy following a calendar written for somebody else's lawn in somebody else's climate. And then you lose turf anyway, every single July, and spend August dragging hoses trying to save what the calendar set up to fail. Higher water bills, higher fertilizer bills, a dead lawn at the end of it. You paid more to get less. That's the whole story. Now let me give you the thing I promised at the start. The one tool that tells me everything. Not a meter. A screwdriver. Stay with me, because this is the test I run on every lawn before July. You take an ordinary 6 to 8 inch screwdriver, and right after you water, you push it straight down into the lawn. That's it. If it slides in easily all the way to 6 inches, you passed. The water reached root depth, the soil isn't compacted, and that lawn is going to make it through summer. If it stops dead at 2 or 3 inches, you've got a problem. Either the water never penetrated, that's the shallow daily watering trap, or your heavy DFW clay is compacted hard and the roots are stuck up top with nowhere to go. Either way, that lawn collapses in July heat. I guarantee it. The fix is simple. Water longer in fewer sessions until that screwdriver reaches 6 inches. And if it's compaction, if the soil's just packed solid, core aerate before July. Pull those plugs and open the clay up so water and roots can get down. Now, people ask me why I trust a 50-cent screwdriver over a $40 moisture meter. Here's why. A meter reads moisture. The screwdriver reads moisture and compaction together, at depth, in one push. And it's that combination, can water get down and can roots follow it, that actually predicts whether a lawn survives. That's the number that matters. You'll never see this on a bag, and you know exactly why by now. It's free. It sells nothing. A test that tells you you're already watering right is a test that tells you to stop buying. Before I let you go, this June window and that screwdriver test, those are one move in a year-round system. It's the system I wish someone had handed me 20 years ago instead of a calendar built for someone else's grass. If you want the lawn to stay ahead of weeds and heat every season instead of reacting to disasters, Chapter 9 of the book, The No Weed Garden, year-round, lays out the full seasonal calendar. The spring refresh, the summer monitoring, the fall prep, all of it. That's the permanent fix, not another single tip. The book's $17 at larrysgardenbooks.com. If you're on your TV, point your phone at the QR code on screen now. Go ahead and dig it out of your pocket. No rush. I'll wait. On a phone or laptop, the link's right down in the description. All right, here's the takeaway. In the last 2 to 3 weeks of June, raise your cut, water deep and infrequent, skip the summer nitrogen, and let the lawn train its own roots before the heat locks in. Now you know what that 4-step calendar left out, and you can stop fighting your lawn all August. Next time, I'll show you the truth about pre-emergent timing, why the calendar date is the wrong signal and the forsythia bloom is the right one. Go check your lawn with that screwdriver. You'll see exactly what I mean. I'll see you in the next one.